What's going on, folks? I'm Des with DesFit, and this is the Wahoo Kickr Core, which builds upon the massive success of the original Kickr direct drive trainer from Wahoo. But the cool thing about the Core is that it comes in at $300 cheaper. It still provides plenty of power. It has 1,800 watts of resistance versus 2,200, and it can simulate a grade of 16% versus 20% of the Kickr 18. So it comes in this nice styrofoam that's going to protect it, and when we take it off, we're going to have what looks like probably the back leg as well as the front leg. And then you'll have the core itself, and it's still plenty heavy. You have your sweet crank it up on the flywheel. And if you're wondering where the power cables and stuff are, there's going to be these two little compartments on the backside. And then here you can have your power cord and then a bag of stuff, which we'll go through here in just a second. So inside the bag of parts, we have a standard quick release. There's going to be the through axle adapters, and this will do 130 and 135 standard quick release, as well as 12 by 142 and 12 by 148 through axle. And these do appear to be made out of nice heavy steel. Quick start guide, as well as a cassette spacer. Then here's going to be all your bolts as well as a wrench. So hopefully we won't have to have any tools other than the cassette lockering and the chain whip, since it does not come with a cassette. Which honestly I'm actually perfectly okay with, just because some people prefer SRAM cassettes, some people prefer Shimano, some people may have 10 speed, 11 speed. And the other thing too is that I do have a spare cassette laying around, so I'm actually okay with that cost savings. All right, for assembly, let's go ahead and extend the leg right there. This will be the back of the unit right here. All right, so in terms of assembly, as DC Rainmaker said on his Kickr Core review, you kind of have a 25% chance of whether you're actually going to get the legs on correctly. And the trick I basically found is that you can look at the box like he said, but you can also align these Kickr Core stickers, the Kickr stickers, to the outside of the unit. So basically, you'll actually have the Kickr Core facing to the back as well as the Kickr Core facing the front, and that's kind of what I found is the easiest trick. And then another nice little touch is that these bolts have a square inset on them as well as a square interface down here. So although they do have an Allen head, it appears like on the end of the bolt you won't need that, because the square interface will prevent the bolt from spinning, so you won't need an additional tool there. You could probably very well flip it over, and that'll probably be a little bit easier. And it doesn't specify in the manual how tight to actually get these nuts, so I'm going to go with right around, that was 5 Newton meters. You know what? Let's go for 6. Calibrated. Again, making sure that the Kickr sticker is on the outside of the unit. Then finally, just go ahead and put these plastic little end caps on to make it look nice and pretty. And then in terms of the through axle adapters, it's pretty cool because basically there's really only going to be 2 sets. So we're going to have the through axle set right here. So this is going to be the drive side cap that's just going to go on for both the 148 as 142. So basically you just flip these around for the different axle configurations. But I have a normal quick release, so we're going to be using this adapter, I think it's A, and then this one again is going to be labeled 130 and 135 depending on your spacing. So in terms of installing the cassette, I get a little bit medical with this, just because I actually do have to film some other stuff with my hands in front of the camera later, so I just figure I'll just use rubber gloves instead. So basically just, you know, go ahead and get the largest notch of the cassette aligned, and let's see if we can do this in one shot. Here we go. Come on. Come on, Schwartz. Oh, fail. I could very well redo this clip, but let's keep things raw. Unlike a normal bicycle wheel where the wheel kind of stays in place as you tighten the cassette, you will need a chain whip for this, since if you were to turn this, well, it'll turn the entire flywheel. You just toss your chain whip on there, give it a snug, good to go. And then see how nice that is? Just peel your rubber gloves off. Clean as a whistle. All right, so now let's go ahead and install our quick release. And it is nice that it comes with a nice steel, cheap quick release in the box. And then we can mount our bike, obviously keeping it in the smallest cog for the derailleur. Slip that into place. I always like to put a little bit of extra pressure on the saddle for my torso, just to make sure that the dropouts are going to be perfectly in place. Clamp it down, and now let's get to the power. So it is kind of strange though, because the switching adapter actually does not have any markings on it at all. So if you do have a lot of adapters laying around for some reason, you may want to mark this. And then this appears to be about, I'd say maybe 8-9 feet. I'll put the exact measurement up on the screen. All right, so as this is powering up, let's go ahead and talk about these specs again really quick. So it's going to have 1,800 watts of resistance versus the 2,200 out of the Kickr 18, and then it'll assimilate a 16% grade versus 20%. And then this is going to be a 12-pound flywheel versus the 16-pound of the Kickr 18, and then the Kickr 17 has a 12.5-pound flywheel, so virtually the same as the Kickr 17. It is still going to have the same sort of axle compatibility, the 130 and 135 quick release, as well as 142 and 148 through axle. As you can see, it's going to be Bluetooth Smart as well as ANT Plus and ANT Plus FEC. And then it's also going to have all the app compatibility like Zwift, Trainer Road. We'll actually test it out on Zwift here in a second. But it also does still have plus or minus 2% power actually, which is pretty darn impressive. But like I said, it does not come with a cassette. It is not going to be height adjustable like the Kickr 18 either. And you may notice that it doesn't have a handle like on the Kickr 18. So in terms of transportation, it's not going to be as convenient. However, the best similarity in my opinion to the Kickr 18 is that this is going to be virtually silent. So let's take it for a spin. All right, so the first thing that we're going to want to do is go ahead and hook up the Kickr to the app. So basically it'll show up immediately. So Kickr Core right there. Let's go ahead and tap that. I'm going to go ahead and save the sensor. And then go ahead and make sure to select the correct wheel size. And then what we do need to do before we actually get the trainer started is we need to do the spin down. So we'll click that. So basically the spin down is something that you'll need to do initially as well as every other week or so, or if you actually go and transport your trainer. So first we're going to go ahead and ride for approximately 10 minutes before we actually do the spin down. So basically for the spin down, you'll need to slowly accelerate to 22.4 miles an hour and then stop pedaling. And then basically you just essentially coast until the spin down completes. So here we go. All done. So I actually just hopped off for a second just so you can actually get a good idea of the sound that comes out of this. So this is going to be the mic that's coming straight off of my camera. There's a little sound of clicking in just for some reference. So this is at 12 miles an hour on Zwift. And really, all you should be hearing is my drivetrain. 13 miles an hour. 15. There's 20 miles an hour. But yeah, that is darn silent. Now the sound that's going to come out of the trainer is going to be a little bit more dependent on speed than power, but just so you can hear what it's going to sound like with me standing up, here we go. And really all you should be able to hear is my chain hitting the front derailleur just slightly. Alright, so first impressions, pretty darn quiet for sure. So it's definitely pretty darn close to silent. So I'm actually going to start a new session on Zwift. We're going to tap on power source and the Kickr Core shows up just right there. And then for heart rate, I'm going to be using a Ticker Fit, which is kind of appropriate since it's made from Wahoo as well. And unfortunately the Core does not provide cadence. Alright, so I think we're going to go ahead and do the park perimeter loop, which seems a little bit flat. Kind of want to take it easy today. By the way, that Lady Liberty course is hilly. It's a little bit deceiving in terms of the 7.7 miles and 675 feet. It is, it's got some climbing. Looks like tons of people are doing the tour of New York. Alright, so first impressions of the Kickr Core. Well, I'll tell you what, it definitely is virtually silent. I mean, I could barely hear it. And I'm coming from an Elite Dorado, which my friend refers to as a fan cannon, but it's not really that loud. He just is coming from a Kickr. So the Elite Dorado, it's a good trainer, and I'll have a long-term review of that, by the way, in a couple days. I'm liking this thing a lot. I don't think it's perfect. The one thing that I would have to say is that it's really odd that the weight is not centered on the legs. And GP Llama actually mentioned this in his review, is that basically the right side of the unit actually has more weight on it, so it'll actually tip over a little bit easier on the right side than the left side. Now, I find it a little bit strange just because I feel like they could maybe offset the legs just a little bit. I'm not going to go ahead and drill the holes on the legs just because it'll probably void the warranty. And then in terms of the power delivery, it was definitely really, really smooth. So for instance, like going up a hill and then kind of cresting over, it definitely was really smooth with that transition. And then going back to the sound actually too, is that it's really nice that basically there is no freewheeling noise. So there's nothing there. It's like barely a hum. But first impressions from the first ride, I really do quite like this thing. It's not perfect, but I think it's a very, very solid deal, especially for that $900 price tag. So I'll have a long-term review of the Kickr Core in a couple months, but in the meantime, definitely check out DC Rainmaker's article as well as video, as well as GP Llama's review of the Kickr Core. But thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.